So, okay, I don't want you guys to go in. We gonna go into good news and bad news. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go into good news and bad news. Go right into that. Holla at me early.
All right. Well, federal authorities in Philadelphia, they shut down a Russian-backed network that was spreading fake news to trick voters in Pennsylvania and other key states before the 2024 election. Did you hear about this, Sarah?
No, I didn't know that.
No? All right. The group called the Doppelganger, a term that means a lookalike or copy, was trying to Doppelganger. Was trying to make people believe Russian propaganda was real news from trusted U.S. outlets. Sizzle actually told me about this story. Sizzle, it sound familiar, right?
Yeah.
They created fake websites that look like well-known sources, and they used social media to spread false stories that supported Russian interests and former President Donald Trump. U.S. Attorney Jacqueline C. Romero said that protecting our democratic processes from foreign influence is paramount. They also hired influencers who didn't know they were involved to share these stories and stir up division online. By shutting this down, the U.S. is trying to protect the upcoming election and make sure voters aren't misled by foreign powers. I see Daryl doing some fact checking.
I need to hear about this. I need to read.
And that, I mean, Philadelphia, though, like, that's crazy how Philly, picked up on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good news, bad news. Because it was an interception. Like, they made sure it didn't happen, but it still happened. So it's, it's good, bad, I guess.
Call it bad.
Yeah,
all right.
See, you get some good and bad news.
The next story is about Philadelphia SEPTA. All right, so Philadelphia SEPTA is planning to raise fares and eliminate certain discounts to address a $240 million budget deficit. I think SEPTA always going up. Like, they either on strike or they want more bread. These changes could generate $14.4 million annually if approved. That's a good thing for our city. Taking effect on December 1st, SEPTA CEO Leslie L. Richards emphasized, we need to act now to ensure reliable services. The agency has also reduced its budget by $20 million, halting non-essential traveling and freezing some hiring. Riders using their key cards or apps will lose their $2 fare discount, now paying $2.50 for the regional rares. Regional rail fares will rise, except for Zone 1, where prices will decrease. Public hearing on the changes are set for October 16th, with final board approval in November. SEPTA also received $47 million from state grants. These funds will support operations and delay potential service cuts, although they were expecting $161 million, which they originally proposed.
Sure. That's big numbers. What I don't get is if they got so much money, why are they going up on the fare?
Well, it looks like it's because of their, I don't know.
SEPTA
The deficit.
Usually running at a deficit.
Well, they said that they're to address their $240 million budget deficit. Mm-hmm. So they're at $240 million. They proposed for $161 million. Mm-hmm. They received $47 million. Once they do the changes, that's going to generate $14.4 million annually.
Which does not cover the deficit
of the 240.
Right, because you got to think about how much money they lost during the pandemic.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she's saying that ridership was lost during the pandemic, and then if they don't get this money now, they'll lose more ridership, and they are not likely to get that ridership back.
Yeah, so is that good news or bad news?
It's interesting news. I just say it's interesting. I mean, people depend on SEPTA. I don't think SEPTA ever has to worry about losing riders. Unless there's another pandemic like that ever happens.
Well, that's why I think also where our mayor had made a lot of people come back to work, and other companies too, like Comcast. They lost a lot of SEPTA lost a lot of money because they were home, so they were like, okay, you guys need to come back in, and to save the downtown area.
Right, but it was disingenuous of her though. She should have been clear with what the issues were, not just y'all need to come back. That stuff started trickling out later. which was the issue.
Well,
right?
I mean, if you follow the money, you'll in the bottom
I
line.
always say follow the money.
Yeah,
Always
you'll
follow the money.
You'll find the answer because there was. When you're doing commercial real estate and when they started to rent these buildings, commercial real estate is usually 5 to 10 years if somebody's in there or not. So here these people are at home, they're still paying a high amount of rent on these empty buildings that they like, hey, you got to put a body in there or something. So that's why. And then the small businesses. So I get it because you can't have the economy deflate like that without having participation from the community. So you're not going to please everybody, especially in that kind of situation.
The only problem I have is when you talk about if you're for the people, then you have to have something in place to accommodate. You can't just say everybody come back to work and we need to generate funds in the most expensive place in Philadelphia, which is Center City. That was the issue. We already struggling to buy bread.
Right.
Struggling to buy. So you just want to facilitate some funding in that particular area without any accommodations, and that was my issue.
Yeah, it really wasn't a well thought out plan because I saw reports of people who were, they were traveling into the city via SEPTA regional rail, so that's expensive. And then when they were getting to work, they had no place to work. They didn't have a workstation. They had to work in a storage closet. Didn't have Wi-Fi.
Listen, I heard people turning over bookshelves to utilize as a desk. Not thought out. It's totally not thought out. I always have an issue with if you're going to do something, at least have talk to the people who are in positions that are doing the work. Don't just come up with this bright idea. Oh, I'm going to do this, and then jump in and put your feet on somebody's table when it's already people that's in the house doing the work.
And a lot of those people that were traveling in using regional rail said that it was costing them more money to get here than they were actually making because they accepted the position based on being able to work from home.
100%, which is posed another problem that she didn't account for.
Exactly. So these people are now looking for new jobs.
I think with the pandemic, we've already been in that position. It's now that the veils have been lifted. Nothing really changed.
Been in what position?
Been in the position of always coming into work. You paying more for daycare. You're paying more for your parent elderly. You're paying more than what you're getting from your job. We've always been in that position. It was the pandemic that allowed us to see differently. Like, oh, I could still be productive with, Silicon has already been doing it, but working remote hasn't been in urban cities. Not like that. So now that they have had exposure to it, they realize it can work, but leadership sometimes doesn't, what I said about the whole, the downtown area, but also give off Fridays, come in at 10, but nobody's trying to do that.
I think it's.
And no, I'm saying that that is true. What is also true is that there was, because of the pandemic, there was a new kind of employment policy kind of sector, which was non-traditional employment. So you hire a completely different kind of workforce that was a hybrid system that you didn't account for when you put everybody back in the city or everybody back in place. So now you have this issue. So if it was some type of kind of contingency policy, then we would be okay. The problem is that you didn't think of that. Just saying. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say there's too many companies now that are offering so many different perks for the city not to step their game up and say, we'll offer you this X, Y, and Z. Even the mental health part. Like I'm not gonna get into the city, but like some jobs are giving you a mental health day or couple days if you just want to take a. I digress.
We had to account for the new normal. There's a new normal that
the new normalcy.
This new normalcy, and the new normalcy was this hybrid not only kind of job position, but even the way that you go about your daily life, this new hybridized way of life that wasn't accounted for.
Work-life balance.
Exactly. And so, yeah. So I don't want you guys to go. Oh, go ahead. My bad.
That was your good news and your bad news from Classy Lady Sparkle.
That was your good news and bad news by Classy Lady Sparkle. I don't want you to go anywhere. When we come back, we got a dynamic interview I don't want you guys to miss because it's going to be good. So we'll be right back after this show. Hello.